December 7th, 1941. A quiet Sunday morning on the island of Oahu, Hawaii. Sailors were sleeping in their bunks. Some were writing letters home. Others were getting ready for church. In less than 2 hours, over 2,400 of them would be dead. The United States was not at war. Not yet. While Europe burned under Hitler's armies and China bled under Japanese occupation, America stayed neutral, protected by 2 oceans, untouchable, or so they believed. But 4,000 miles away in Japan, one man had been planning the unthinkable. Admiral Yamamoto, commander of Japan's combined fleet, had spent over a year designing a single, devastating strike that would cripple American naval power in the Pacific in one morning. Yamamoto knew America was too powerful to defeat in a long war. Its factories could outproduce Japan 10-1, so his plan was simple and terrifying. Hit them so hard on day one that their Pacific fleet would be destroyed before they could even react. Knock them out before they stood up. On November 26, 1941, a fleet of 6 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships, 3 cruisers, 9 destroyers, and 23 submarines left Japan under complete radio silence. 353 aircraft loaded and ready. Their destination was a closely guarded secret. Even most of the pilots didn't know where they were going. For 11 days, the fleet sailed north through freezing fog and rough seas to avoid detection. No radio transmissions, no contact with Tokyo. If any ship broke down, it would be left behind. There was no turning back. Meanwhile, in Hawaii, American intelligence had intercepted Japanese diplomatic messages. They knew negotiations were collapsing. They knew war was likely, but they made one fatal assumption. They believed Japan would strike the Philippines first. No one expected an attack on Pearl Harbor. It was too far, too risky, too insane. At 6 a.m. on December 7th, the Japanese fleet reached its launch position, 230 miles north of Oahu. The seas had calmed. The clouds had cleared. Conditions were perfect. Admiral Nagumo gave the order. Launch. 183 aircraft roared off the flight decks in the first wave. 40 torpedo bombers, 51 dive bombers, 49 high-altitude bombers, 43 fighters. They climbed into formation and turned south toward Oahu, the largest aerial attack force ever launched from aircraft carriers at that time. At 7:02 a.m., 2 Army privates manning a radar station on the north shore of Oahu detected a massive blip on their screen. A huge formation of aircraft approaching from the north. They reported it immediately. Their superior told them to forget about it. He assumed it was a group of American B-17 bombers expected that morning. It wasn't. At 7:48 a.m., the first wave arrived over Pearl Harbor. The strike commander looked down and saw the entire Pacific Fleet lined up like targets in a shooting gallery. 8 massive battleships anchored side by side along what was called Battleship Row. He radioed back to the fleet 3 words. Tora! 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 Complete surprise achieved. The torpedo bombers came in first. Flying just 50 feet above the water, they released their weapons straight at the anchored battleships. Within seconds, explosions ripped through the harbor. The USS Oklahoma was hit by 5 torpedoes in rapid succession. She rolled over completely, trapping over 400 men inside her hull. Most of them drowned in the dark. At 8:06 a.m., a single armor-piercing bomb dropped from high altitude struck the USS Arizona. It penetrated the forward deck and ignited the ship's ammunition magazine. The explosion was so massive, it lifted the entire 32,000-ton battleship out of the water. 1,177 men died in less than 9 seconds. It remains the single deadliest moment in United States naval history.
Across the harbor, men scrambled from their bunks, half-dressed and confused. Some thought it was a drill until they saw the flames. Anti-aircraft guns had no ammunition ready. Planes on the airfields were parked wingtip to wingtip to prevent sabotage, making them perfect targets. 188 aircraft were destroyed before they ever left the ground. But Americans started fighting back. Sailors pulled wounded men from burning water covered in oil fires. A mess cook named Doris Miller, with zero training on weapons, grabbed an unmanned anti-aircraft gun and started shooting at Japanese planes. He shot down at least 2. He was the first African-American awarded the Navy Cross. He never received formal weapons training before that morning. The second wave hit at 8:54 a.m. Another 171 aircraft. This time, the Americans were ready with some anti-aircraft fire, but it barely mattered. The harbor was already burning. Oil leaked from sinking ships and caught fire, turning the water itself into a sea of flames. Men who jumped overboard to escape their ships burned alive in the water. Inside the capsized USS Oklahoma, trapped sailors banged on the hull for hours, hoping someone would hear them. Rescue teams worked for 2 days, cutting through steel with torches, trying to reach the men inside. They saved 32. Over 400 others suffocated or drowned in the dark, flooded compartments before anyone could reach them. By 9:45 a.m., it was over. The entire attack lasted 1 hour and 15 minutes. In that time, Japan had sunk or damaged 21 ships, destroyed 188 aircraft, and killed 2,403 Americans, including 68 civilians. Japan lost just 29 aircraft and 129 men. It was one of the most lopsided military victories in modern history. But Japan made 3 critical mistakes that morning. They never hit the oil storage tanks. 4.5 million barrels of fuel sitting in plain sight, completely untouched. Without that fuel, the surviving fleet would have been forced to retreat to the mainland, and the war in the Pacific would have been delayed by at least a year. They never hit the submarine base or the repair yards. Those repair facilities would work around the clock for months, raising and fixing damaged ships that Japan thought were permanently destroyed. And most importantly, they missed every single aircraft carrier. All 3 carriers were out at sea that morning. Pure luck that would change the entire course of the war. The next day, December 8th, President Franklin Roosevelt stood before Congress and delivered 6.5 minutes that changed the world. He called December 7th a date which will live in infamy. Within an hour, Congress voted to declare war on Japan. The vote was 388 to 1. America was no longer neutral. America was furious. 3 days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. In 1 week, America went from a neutral country minding its own business to a global superpower, fighting a 2-front war against 3 empires simultaneously. And the sleeping giant that Yamamoto feared he had awakened was about to prove him right. What Japan didn't anticipate was the scale of America's response. Before Pearl Harbor, the US produced about 3,000 military aircraft per year. By 1944, that number was over 96,000 per year. American shipyards built more warships in 3 years than Japan could build in 30. The attack that was supposed to keep America out of the Pacific did the opposite. It guaranteed America would never stop until Japan surrendered completely.
6 months after Pearl Harbor, those 3 aircraft carriers that Japan missed led the American fleet to the Battle of Midway. In a single day, American pilots sank 4 Japanese carriers, the same 4 that had launched planes against Pearl Harbor. It was the turning point of the Pacific War. Japan never recovered.
Yamamoto himself would not survive to see the end. In April 1943, American codebreakers intercepted his flight schedule. Fighter planes ambushed his transport over the Solomon Islands and shot it down. The architect of Pearl Harbor died in the jungle of a remote Pacific island. The same intelligence capabilities he underestimated killed him.
Of the 2,403 Americans who died that morning, 1,177 remain entombed inside the USS Arizona. The ship still sits on the bottom of Pearl Harbor, exactly where it sank. After more than 80 years, it still leaks oil, about 2 quarts every single day. They call them the Tears of the Arizona, a ship still bleeding for its crew.
Japan wanted a quick victory, a single punch that would force America to negotiate peace. Instead, they got 4 years of total war that ended with 2 atomic bombs and unconditional surrender. Every consequence Yamamoto feared came true. He once reportedly said, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." He was right. Pearl Harbor lasted 75 minutes, but those 75 minutes pulled America into the deadliest war in human history, changed the balance of global power forever, and turned a neutral nation into the most dominant military force the world has ever seen. All because one Sunday morning, the world learned what happens when you wake up America.